Peace and blessings. This is Grand Kush. Excuse, I'm not in my normal setting. My Wi-Fi is down due to some construction work being done outside of my residence. It's got me pissed off a little bit. But anyway, we got to go on with the science. All right. So I have a question. I was thinking, because I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, as we all are watching a lot of YouTube videos. And I stay in the conscious side, the black conscious side of the YouTube universe, right? And so, in watching some videos, I came up with the question, right? Because I don't think this is really being covered when it comes down to the consciousness of who we are. And see, this sucks when it comes down to my internet being off, because I like to define words. I like to look into the etymology of words, right? I like to consider languages when it comes down to disseminating this nine science, right? But today I'm just going to read from the introductions of the nature of nature, the introductions of the nature of nature by Afroo, Oonoo. He brought nine science. Dr. Malachi Z. York brought Nuwapu. All right. I say they go hand in hand, but there are other nine scientists who are, in a sense, divisionists, and so they separate the information, or they try to capitalize on one set of information for their own personal growing clout, attention, and things of that nature. Me, I endeavor to just get to the truth, okay? And this information, nine science, deals with the origins of black people, what black people are composed of, our culture, our heritage, traditions, and things of that nature. But I want to throw something out before I go into this works. Right now, black people are going through something that I've never seen before, ever in the history of black people. Some of us are straying away from being connected to the motherland or being connected to Africa, and stating that we are our own people. And I have no problem with that at all. In the sense that we as black Americans are our own people doing our own thing on this continent called North America. And so in reading this information and dealing with this information, I will go as far as to say we as black Americans have our own spiritual, cultural, religious, scientific understanding and based on what we've had to deal with and overcome in America. Our religious understanding, our scientific understanding in dealing with the origins of ourselves may not fall in line with some of the other eumelaninites around the world, right? And so I would say that nine science is our own black American science. I don't want to say religion, because nine scientists are not to be stuck in three ether religious sciences, if you will, right? But nine science is a universal science, so it covers all eumelaninites. But like I said, nine science, Nuwapu and Noon science, were produced to awaken and uplift black Americans first, okay? And set the mind straight, the mankind races, the straight-haired mankind races, to set their mind straight and also to let them know who we are. So in the case of this question that I have, with that breakdown, I'm going to go into the question. Okay. So my question is, in North America, we as Black Americans, where do we get our spiritual, godly understanding from? Okay. Now, if you're someone like me, when you're trying to teach information and not be a separatist or divisionist, subversive, right? Then you may understand that, or if you're really trying to teach that there's a soul component to us, there's a spiritual component to us, there's an elemental component to us, right? There's a mental component to us, and there's a physical aspect and component to us, right? If you go into the ancient Egyptian understanding of who a person was, I think there's 9 different principles to a person. You got the ba, the ak. You understand what I'm saying? And those other principles. I don't know all the principles. The kots, the body, right? Um, I don't know all the principles off my mind, but in ancient Egypt, Egyptian scientific philosophy on creation, there's 9 principles to a being. And I just mentioned 5, right? So soulful, spiritual, elemental, mental, and physical. Um, Now, you don't have to necessarily agree with that. I just wrote that down because when it comes down to where do we get our spiritual, godly understanding from, I feel like these, at least these base 5, have to be covered. Okay. And this is before we even choose to be a nation, right? Before we can have a nationality, we have to understand who we are under God and understand self first, right? And then that understanding can bring us together based on a common understanding, right? Can bring us together as a nation. And I feel like the reason why we haven't fully unified yet is because our spiritual self is off, or we're not in cohesiveness and understanding where our spiritual, godly background comes from and where we are drawing this understanding from, right? And so I'm going to read from the introductions to the nature of nature, and what I want to talk about first, or maybe just only talk about, right, is spirit beings. Okay, so the question is, right, if you believe in spirits, okay, the spirits, there's spirits that's talked about in the Bible, right, in the Quran, in the Torah, any black religious scientific organizations that came after 1865, came after Christianity. You got to throw Islam in there. Islam was an early religion in America, with Black Americans finding themselves. But the Hebrew Israelites, the Nuwapians, Noon scientists, Noonie Boos, right, all speak on spiritual aspects or spiritual um, beings, and in the works of explaining the origins of the planet Earth and the origins of human beings, and uh, the mediums between God and human beings are spirit beings. And Noon Science and Wapu breaks this down properly. The thing is, we may also be separated and ununified because of comprehension. And this is why I like to deal with definitions and etymologies and things of that nature. So there can be a clear understanding to what I'm saying, and what, if I'm using 9 science, what 9 science is expressing. So let's go in, right? Listen to reason. The origins of original spirit beings, spirits not produced from or by other spirit beings, are the center brains of universe orbs and universe bodies, such as the sun, earth, and moon of our solar system. Let me read that again, because that might have been confusing with the information that was put in the parentheses. The origins of original spirit beings are the center brains of universe orbs and universe bodies such as the sun, earth, and moon of our solar system. Okay, so what that is saying, and so it'll be clear as I continue to read, that spirit beings, spirits, and everything that we think of as spirit comes from the center brains of the sun, the earth, and the moon. Okay, this could be revolutionary for some. This can be hard to understand for some, right? But I feel like this is the best um, expression of how spirit beings are produced, right? So they're produced by their brains in the sun, the brain, right? When I said brains, I'm talking about all three. The brain within the sun, the earth, and the moon, okay? And so today, the center of these orbs are called cores, right? In nine science, these cores are called brains, all right? And so the core of these orbs vibrate, okay? Just like we vibrate, they vibrate. And in the vibration, right, there's spirit being production. Just like we create spirit when we vibrate our brains by way of thinking and reasoning, we create spirit. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Original spirit beings are spirit gods and goddesses, and they can and might produce other spirit beings of various powers and degrees who may or may not be gods and goddesses of noticeable or notable magnitude, or might be just helper spirits. In other words, original spirit beings are gods and goddesses of immortality. Spirit beings cannot be destroyed. Okay, just like energy cannot be destroyed. All right. Original spirit beings are gods and goddesses of immortality, and they can produce descendants and helper spirits, right? And how does this happen? It's gonna be explained right here. Spirit beings multiply, reproduce offspring by division, okay? Meaning the male principle, the father, and the female principle, the mother, divide part of themselves and magnetically and magically adhere and fuse the two procreative parts together to reproduce another. Give me a moment, I'm scrolling. To reproduce another related and similar spirit being, right? Okay. So they separate and then they can come back together and multiply and divide and reproduce in that form. The offspring is female if the greater inherent part of the offspring is female, and the offspring is male, of course, if the higher, greater inherent part of the descendant is male. Okay. And so here, the spirit beings are being spoken in way of gender. These male and females are couples, right? They're couples. So when a male is created, a female is also created. When a female is created, a male is also created. The gods are further discussed in the following topic of this book. When the writer mentions the gods without mentioning their goddess, let it be understood that their goddesses are automatically included where feasible or appropriate. And this is how the first way they knocked us off is to separate us from our goddess, right? So we, as above, so below, we need to follow the ways of the spirits. We must note that spirits can be good and evil. You understand what I'm saying? But in this case, as far as the format and the template, we are supposed to be in human form connected to our goddess, and that's how. And a goddess is supposed to be connected to a god. In the case of human being, demigod and demigoddess, right? And this is how we operate at our best capacity, fusing our brains together to, in a sense, create one supreme brain, right? A god or goddess is not always an individual spirit being, and vice versa. Let it be remembered always, and let it be known. And so the rift that you may see today between the black man and the black woman, there is a hidden hand behind the scenes that created this division. You know what I'm saying? That created this division. All right. And also, with this question that I'm giving, what is the spiritual godly base? If the spiritual godly base of the male is different than the spiritual godly base of the female, if the male has got one way of thinking and the female got one way of thinking, how can they come together, right? If they believe in the same things, in a sense, Jesus Christ and Christianity, but because of ego and lack of humbleness and respect for each other, there's different expressions of Christianity or different understandings of Christianity, then how can the black man and the black woman come together and fuse together? Also, in the case of being a Hebrew Israelite, Muslim, more science templeless, whatever, all of these organizations were brought in order to get us to ride on a particular frequency and wave. And I feel like because of the European stimulation, all this shit outside of our spirituality has detoured us enough to where our spiritual base is lacking cohesiveness, right? Let's continue. Listen to reason. During the top half of the smash circle of order, spirit beings are visible to the naked eyes, but during the bottom half of the same circle, starting at 0.6 west and ending at 0.6 east, okay, I don't want to scroll through the book to find this symbol, right? I'll edit this and then put the symbol in there, all right, so you won't be confused. Counterclockwise, spirit beings are visible to the naked eye. See figure 6 in part 2 of this volume for the points just mentioned. Okay, so I'll lightly explain the smash circle of order. Okay. In fact, I'll draw it. All right. So the smash circle of order looks like this. Okay. These 9s and 6s and 3s are positions on the circle. Okay. It's broken down in quads and 4s. Okay. And it moves counterclockwise. It's called the cycle of life and death also. Okay. You will see the Bakongo symbol. Go look at the medicine wheel, but the medicine wheel is going clockwise, which is the wrong direction for the planet Earth, just like time. All planets in the solar system rotate counterclockwise, okay? So that's the smash circle of order, okay? And then on this circle, this is the start, right? And we go counterclockwise, okay, until we get to the 3. According to the science, okay, this is the most hellish point in this time cycle and where we are today. We are in the most hellish point, okay? And we've just crossed past this point by a little bit. So as you get farther up, the positive forces of nature grow stronger according to this information. And if this is something that you can grab your mind around and wrap your mind around, meaning if you can say, hey, this makes sense to me, then this information is for you, right? Like I said, and according to 9 science, all you melaninites is not going to be down with this information, but this information gives us a great understanding of who we are and how the cycles of the universe work and how time works, because SMAT is all space, all matter, and all time. And this is called the SMAT circle of order, all space, matter, and time. And so we go counterclockwise. We just got past this bottom hellish point here at the 3. And this 3 represents 3 ether. This 3 represents religion. Okay, the religion that was brought by the Caucasian. Okay, when you get here, this 6 represents the waning of our mental power, Nuwapu, right? 9 science, and represents the pantheistic ways of the dark-skinned people with straight black hair. Okay, so you start dealing with the Hindus, the Phoenicians, the Arabs, right down into the Latinos, and all of that stuff, right? But this point here, according to this information, is when we began to lose power. Okay. Let's go in. In nature science, supernatural does not mean something or someone with power and magic beyond and above the natural, because there is no such person or thing, for nature is all persons, all places, and all things. Let's read that again. In nature science, which 9 science is, at the highest pinnacle of science, supernatural does not mean something or someone with power and magic beyond and above the natural, because there is no such person or thing, for nature is all persons, all places, and all things. Okay? But supernatural means something or someone who possesses higher or highest power and ability of the natural or above the ordinary and normal routine of activities and understanding, because there are many levels of power, ability, and authority of and in absolute almighty nature, who is infinite and also eternal. And so, with that being said, we are not in our supernatural capacity. Black people are now on the bottom when it comes down to dealing with the straight-haired mankind races, because we are under a spell. Okay? We are under a spell. Under the spell is not knowing who we are, calling yourself an Indian and saying that you are the original or the aboriginal, the original people of North America. It's not enough. It's not enough, because if you still are a Christian or praying to the white Jesus Christ, then how can you be in your supernatural God capacity when you're praying and worshiping to somebody who, in a sense, has less melanin than you? Okay. Now, we can argue Jesus Christ has woolly hair in Revelations. That's all fine and good, but do the majority of Christians, i.e. Germans, Irish, and the English who became the white people in America, those are the colonizers, do they believe that Jesus is black? Now they say you can go to Europe and you find images of the Black Madonna, you find images of black people with woolly hair, and indeed you do. But we're not in Europe, we're in America, right? And those Germans, Irish, and English that came from their homelands and came to America, they became American, right? And what that means is they no longer follow the ways of their homeland. They created a cohesiveness, they created an understanding, right? And they call that understanding American. And so Americans are now quite different than their ancestors. Americans, as far as the colonizers and the Europeans are concerned, are quite different from their ancestors, but they're the same people. Well, they're not even the same people because they got black blood in them, right? Okay, let's go. Okay, so we need to get our levels of power, ability, and authority back up in accordance with absolute almighty nature, who is infinite and also eternal. Let it be remembered always and let it be known. Let's continue on. I'm scrolling up. Listen to reason. Some people might ask, how does one determine whether a spirit or a god is good or evil? A good spirit is evil if it does evil things to you. And an evil spirit is good if it does good things for you, right? That's deep, okay? We're talking about spirit beings. Spirit beings are controllers and programmers when it comes down to the universes and when it comes down to their effectiveness. They're controllers and programmers. But more specifically, if not precisely, a spirit is good by nature if it strives to attain and maintain justice and equality among individuals and races of individuals, and is dedicated and obligated by nature to keep natural law and order effective and morals high. Okay, so we can't be dealing with good spirits. And so this goes back to the question, what is our spiritual godly understanding? Because we can't be dealing with good spirits in the capacity that black people or black Americans are having to deal with things in America, because we still on the bottom. And see, this is where we got to be accountable. We got to be responsible for the powers that our brains the power that our brains transmit, the energy and the spirit that are and the power that our brains transmit. Right now, we're giving a whole lot of our shit away to get on and be accepted by the lowest of the lowest of the mankind races. Not even human beings, the lowest of the mankind races, the ghosts. The only way we can have power and continue to have power, and in the striving to have power, keep our power, is to be unified by mind. And our spirit beings work for us. So what spirit beings is controlling us? Got to be negative spirit beings because of the way that we're living today. And a spirit being is evil by nature if it encourages and supports strife, violence, one-sided racism, injustice, and inequality among individuals and also races of individuals. We got to understand that human beings and the mankind races and the ghosts are being operated by spirit. Okay. When your brain is vibrating, your blood, your heart is pumping, this is creating your individual spirit along with your brain, which is your personal God. That's why you got to be responsible and accountable, because we are all the faults of our problems. We are the fault, okay? Because we don't know any better and we don't want to know better. And the sense that we can't seem to see that the enemy is still the enemy. Okay? We are dealing with inequality, injustice, one-sided racism. What is one-sided racism? Where one race feels they are superior to other races. Whether they act it out or not, this is the reasoning and the thoughts they have inside of their skulls by way of their brains. That's when a spirit being is evil, when they want to cause violence, strife. Okay? Of course, spirit beings are not the same as human beings. Therefore, we human beings should not expect them to have human emotions, human compassion, human reasoning, human physical feelings, and human views like another human would. Do you get that? Because they are conscious ether gases and not flesh and blood. What are spirit beings? They are conscious ether gases and not flesh and blood. So when they say you are possessed, how do you have a possession? Okay? You can have a possession when you're vibrating so high that your body, you attract positive spirits, okay, that can permeate through pores of the body and grow you to be the demigod that you are supposed to be. Okay? You can vibrate on a low frequency. Okay? You can vibrate on a low frequency. Your continence is constantly low. You got a woe is me attitude, right? They got you thinking, man, we got to go out there and really go to war with these people. The greatest war, right, is to not have a war at all. And what I mean by that is not to participate. Have you noticed if you're arguing with somebody, if you sit there and just don't participate, then you usually dissolve the situation, or the person gets so pissed off where you might have to knock them out, right? But usually, if you don't entertain, participate, it'll dissolve, right? And that's why I say we don't really need to have no wars. We need to ignore. We need to not participate. We need to not put our money with. Okay, that's another thing they got us doing. They got us thinking the more that we pay, we buy their shit. Now, I'm not never spending my money on a Balenciaga anything, Gucci, none of that stuff, right? I'm not wearing none of that stuff because I personally think it's whack. Okay. Also, it puts you in a condition where the people that created these clothes, okay, the people that rock these clothes look at you like you're trying to be like them. You understand what I'm saying? But anyway, that's my personal 9 cents. Yet, let's go back to reading. Yet, there is something that spirit beings and human beings have very much in common, and that is the pursuit of self preservation, survival, and also well being. And to spirits, theirs come first. Spirit beings are first. Do you remember what this information said about the production of spirit beings? They come from the brain centers of orbs through vibration and reasoning. You create a spirit being. They multiply, they divide and multiply in order to reproduce. To spirit beings, to spirits, theirs come first, which is only natural. A god or goddess can be physical or spiritual or both, depending on what it is time for and whom it is time for. Let it be remembered always and let it be known. And with that being said, anybody can be a teacher. Anybody can be a leader when it comes down to the positive forces of nature and the correcting of the negativity that's been going on for the past 6,000 years, along with the atrocities of the everything else, all the things that black people had to deal with in the negative, right? This way of the world cannot continue to go on. And in fact, it is at its ending. AI is coming in. Everything that we know to be normal to today is going to change. We are already getting rid of the old ways. So if you was You're my age in your 50s. You already know shit is changing, right? Changing like it never occurred before. Okay. So what I mean by that is kids uh, who are born today, they'll never know about the phone connected to the cord unless you tell them that. But if they're never known that, then it never existed. And that's deep. Okay. We the only people that can continue to exist throughout existence. And what this information is endeavoring you to do is to wake the fuck up. You understand what I'm saying? Listen to reason. Original spirit beings are indeed the results of, are created by brain concentration, by universe orbs of nature, such as the sun, earth, and moon of our solar system. Brain concentration. Okay. Some of these words, these are going to be new nine sense words, right? And these words need to be placed in our vocabulary. Okay, because they think a particular type of way. We reason a particular type of way based on brain concentration. Okay. They are ether energies who are motivating and activating minds and forms and degrees of reason. Nonetheless, it should be very well understood, for there are much confusion and misunderstanding on the spirits and creation subject, that though individual spirit beings are creators, they do not take the place of brain newts, creative brain, and creative reason. Okay. Now, this is another new word or words. Well, word newts. It's not really a new word if you understand newt in ancient Egypt. Okay. And newt and crannies, like newts and crannies, is just the grain. Newt is a grain, right? The smallest particles, right, that come together like elements to make a bigger being or organism. You understand what I'm saying? And so spirit beings are creators, they do not take the place of brain newts, creative brain, and creative reasoning. So brain newts are all the smallest particles that come together that create a brain. And so when you say, what is brain composed of, we would say brain newts, right? Like you would say, what is the body composed of? What is matter composed of? Elements, right? And so brain newts come together to create brains, and brain newts create the brain, and the brain creates the spirit beings, and that's why the brain newts precede spirit being. Okay, so you can understand that spirit beings are creators of skills, habits, conditions, situations, diseases, cures, religions, religious strife, wars, peace, miracles, magicism, magicism, oppression, one sided racism, racial violence, slavery, liberation, programs, and other activities and realities that motivate, activate, and control persons and things and make them better or worse. All these conditions, as this reading just said, that we are in, positive or negative, and the backdrop of it all is spirit beings. Okay. And at one time, as a people, we were in control and in alignment with our spirit beings. You understand? Our spirit force. This spirit force for the past 6,000 years has been disconnected and, in a sense, unknown to black people when they got us to pray to Jesus Christ and to bow our heads to the ghosts. Okay? Let's read this again. Let's read this again. Spirit beings are creators of skills, habits, conditions, situations, diseases, cures, religions, religious strife, wars, peace, miracles, magicism, oppression, one sided racism, racial violence, slavery, liberation, programs, and other activities and realities that motivate, activate, and control person and things and make them better or worse. Okay? And so I see a lot of black Christians. Well, I don't see a lot of black Christians. I've seen a couple of videos from black Christians, that's better said, on the aspects and the understanding of sinners. And most of them were speaking about the West African spiritual connect. You understand what I'm saying? And saying that that was evil. Okay, evil spirit, witchcraft, right? And some may agree that that may be witchcraft. But in the sense of black people, we had a spiritual connection before we had a connection to Jesus Christ. Before Jesus Christ was even known, we had our own spiritual connections. And white people, and even the mankind races with straight hair. Well, when I say mankind races, always think straight hair, because when I talk about us, I'm going to say sun people, or you Melaninites, or Ethiopians, or Tahites, Cushites. You understand what I'm saying? Black Americans. You know, we had a spiritual base before they gave us something to worship. And these people are afraid for us to have or reconnect with our own spiritual base, because we are the civilizers. Do you understand what I'm saying? We are the civilizers. We are the keepers of the fire. Okay? We are the keepers of the fire. We created the fire first. We made the fire first. Okay? We brought the lights. Do you understand? Okay? Spirit beings are opposites of human beings in the sense that human beings are visible and spirit beings are invisible in the bottom half of the smash circle of order. Let it be remembered always and let it be known. And so when you talk about the ancestral line of black people, this information has taken us into the millions. Although modern day white scientific, ghost scientific archaeology and biology and genetics and all that don't take us back as far as black people was concerned in the millions. Our information take us back into the millions. And so some of us think or may know that the dates is not real. The time is moving clockwise and the planets is moving counterclockwise, right? And so the times are not real, and possibly the dates of existence and creation of black people may not be real or truthful by their dissemination and expression. Listen to reason. To put it another way, spirit beings are programmers and controllers who follow the dictates of their natures, which are parts of the nature of nature. So when you say the nature of nature, all there is infinite, almighty, eternal nature. There's nature, has always been and always will be. But the nature of nature is the God of nature, is the activity of nature, right? Which is the true God. The activities by way of reason is the God in nature. In other words, spirit beings are the angels of the one supreme being, omnipotent, omnipresent, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient nature. And they do what comes natural and what the brain concentration that created them commands. And so sun gods and sun goddesses are the strongest of the spirit gods and goddesses, right? You have the earth god and goddesses, and you have the moon god and goddesses, right? And all of them have different ethereal power, okay? And so when you're dealing with the sun god and goddess, you're dealing with 9 ether. When you're dealing with the moon god and goddess, you're dealing with 6 ether. And when you're dealing with the earth god and goddess, you're dealing with 6 ether. And when you're dealing with moon right? God and goddess, or the death force, right? That's the moon god and goddess, okay? The brain of a universe orb or body is located in the center of that star, planet, or satellite, and that brain controls persons and things by emanating ether energy and creating spirit beings to program, coordinate, and execute activities of the smack circle of order through persons and things, right? So when you deal with spirit force, right, you got to think of like when they said you can do things out of habit, and then you can do a thing for the first time. And when you do a thing for a first time, let's think of Michael, not Michael, yeah, Michael Jordan dunking, right? Michael Jordan dunking. Okay, some of his dunks were the first ever done just by him. You understand what I'm saying? But that was a spirit as well. Okay. Before we do things, sometimes we'll pray. Some of us are cross. Some of us are bow our heads. Some of us is just say, give me, do a mantra, give me the power, God. You understand? So this is all spirit. When it's happening inside of you and you act it out, right? That spirit is a programmer and a controller. You understand? I'm going out to play football. I'm going to get 5 touchdowns. Well, that's the spirit of 5 touchdowns, if you can dig what I'm saying. It's going to urge you to drive for these 5 touchdowns. So as you're acting in this spirit is programming and controlling the human being to move in that particular way. And so spirits are the dead, the spirit dead, and they have power over the living in the bottom half of the smack circle of order to the extent that the nature of nature extends that power. Let it be remembered always and let it be known. All right. The next I'm going to is the gods of nature by reason. This is spirit beings of nature by reason. And so I'm going to leave this with the question, where do black people or black Americans get their spiritual godly understanding from? And and are we divided based on our comprehension, understanding, and reverence for spiritual godly understanding? With that being said, this is Grand Kush. Leave a comment down at the bottom. If you dig the information, like and subscribe. Until next time, stay great. One.